Hello YouTube, in this video I thought I'd make the distinctive warrior bug from the movie Starship Troopers. So I'm just starting off, as I quite often do with these kind of smaller sculpts, with an armature. This is just made from 2mm aluminium wire, and I just basically shape it to the shape that I think the legs are going to be, and then I've twisted it all together in the middle so it's all joined. I've also done another really basic armature for the head and the body. That's this one here, and you can see it's basically just the jaws and yeah, the body, and again all twisted together in the middle so it's nice and strong. This just provides a real basic shape that I can kind of put milliput over the top. This type of aluminium wire that's 2mm is really easy to bend, it's really soft and really easy to cut with wire cutters. You can see the head and body will be attached something like this when it comes to it, but I'm going to make them separately and then join them together afterwards. Just makes it easier to be able to shape everything with the milliput if they're in two sections. Right, my next stage was to add milliput over the top. If you haven't used milliput before, it's a two-part putty. You mix the two parts together and then it starts to set rock hard at room temperature in about 4 hours. So you can see I've just basically put really quite loosely the shape of the legs on here. It's really rough at this stage, but I plan to kind of sand all this down so I don't mind too much. The nice thing with milliput is because it dries rock hard, you can sand it and you get a really nice kind of smoother, more refined shape afterwards. You've probably noticed that I'm using silver milliput and also turquoise blue milliput. This light coloured turquoise blue is because I've mixed it actually together, so I've got some silver mixed in with the turquoise blue. It doesn't matter because I'm going to be painting all of this obviously afterwards. So you can see there's a lot of cracks and things in this, but that doesn't matter either because I'll smooth all that in later. This is just to get the overall basic form. Yeah, I'm really lucky on this channel because I'm sponsored by Milliput. So over the months and months that they've been sponsoring me, they've sent me lots of different colours of Milliput as well. So I've been able to try them all out and see what I think, and I love all of them. But it just depends what I'm making, and most of the time actually, like I say, it doesn't really matter because I end up painting it anyway. But the new Milliput Metallic has just come out, and that is a really good one because it's got like little flecks of silvery colour in it, and yeah, it looks really nice, especially if you sand it and polish it. Okay, I've made these couple of extra little kind of antennae bits to go on the top, and notice that I've again attached those to a wire. That just means that I can drill a hole into the head and then feed that bit of wire into the hole and attach it together with super glue. Right, I thought I was being quite clever making all the leg sections separate because it meant that I could bend the legs into different positions. But the only thing is, now that it's at this stage, obviously it's collapsed on the weight of the body and the head pushing down, so the legs are not as up as they were before. So I'm thinking what I'm going to end up doing is put it up on a little stand, but I'll show you that later. You can see here where I've attached all the little kind of antennae and bits on. I've smoothed in all of those cracks, so wherever there was a crack I basically just pushed more milliput down into the cracks and smoothed it off a bit. I might do further sanding on this as well before I paint it, but yeah, where these bits of legs now are hitting the ground, they weren't hitting the ground before, so he looks a lot flatter than he did, so I'm going to have to raise that up and put it on a stand. I could have filled all of the gaps with milliput, but I just think the legs are so kind of thin, I would worry about it, like maybe like cracking or something on the legs later, especially because I want to add really quite thin tips to all of the legs. Okay, after a little bit of sanding and adding the milliput as well between the leg joints, I managed to get it to look like this. So again, it's raised off of the ground now, and that's fine for, you know, just for this video sort of thing, but I think over time that would be quite delicate. You can see how thin the legs are. But this is also a good example of just how strong milliput is, because you can see it standing here on these very fine tips to the legs, and it's got all of that weight on top of it and it's fine. I hope you can all tell that I've done quite a bit of sanding to smooth the legs and also the ridge along the head and that sort of thing. Okay, this is the basic stand that I made for it. You can see it's just a piece of dowel which I drilled a hole in the actual creature from underneath, and I fed like a wire into the piece of dowel and up into the body of the creature as well, and glued that with some super glue. And then down the bottom here you can see the dowel goes into this little block of wood and then down onto the base, and again that's all got super PVA glue inside it, so it's really quite strong as well. At least it will be once it's all dried. I'll probably leave this now overnight and all that PVA glue will set, and it sets like really kind of hard and rubbery, and yeah, it will be really completely solid after that. Right, I was pleased with how it was looking at this stage, but I needed to add all of the little details. So can you see here, this is using the turquoise blue Milliput, and you can see I've done some down on the base, but I've mainly used it for these details. So like the sort of the ridges in the jaws, that's really nice, makes it look a lot more menacing. I've done the little eyes as well that sort of stick out at the side of the head. These kind of ridges as well on his antennae. All of this will look much better painted obviously, but it's nice adding these little features. The bump on the back of his abdomen there, and these kind of wing tips I've put on, and then you've got these sort of little bits that stick out the side, almost like extra legs but not, you know. And then can you see on the legs I've added these bits of Milliput, just like little long rolled out sausages that have been kind of flattened, and you get those ridges on the legs and they make all the difference. The little extra points on the jaw as well make it look more menacing, and I've added just a little bit more length to the legs just to give a slightly finer point. Down on the base I thought it looked a bit boring just as a little block of wood, so I covered it in Milliput, and then I've just gone in there and textured it all just with a little ball stylus, and I think that makes quite a difference, gives it a bit of texture. So yeah, if you haven't seen the movie Starship Troopers before, it's well worth a watch. It's really good. And this creature, the warrior bug, is really distinctive, like I say. There's another creature in it called a brain bug. Obviously I wanted to make the warrior bug first because that's the one everybody will kind of instantly recognise. But in a way I think I prefer the brain bug because it looks kind of like a sort of a brain crossed with a maggot kind of thing. So I would quite like to make that at some point in the future as well. But yeah, I'll just do this one for now and add it to my collection. It's one that I've been meaning to do for a long time. So the colour scheme on this is like a really dark green, and then it has all these kind of yellowy stripes on it and a few little red patches. But the first step with painting this is going to be basically just to paint the whole thing black or very dark green. It sometimes feels a shame to paint a sculpt when you get to this sort of stage and you've got all the details on there, and it's quite a light colour Milliput, so everything's showing up quite nicely, and then to paint it really dark sometimes, yeah, seems a bit of a pity. But when you want to actually, you know, create something that looks like it does in the movies, you've just got to go with the colours that it actually is. So you can see here, this is a very dark green. You can hardly tell that it's green because it's got so much black in it. And actually the green that I chose, which was emerald green, actually dries a little bit darker anyway. So when I put it on, it looked a little bit lighter than this, but it's dried darker. Doesn't matter though, because I'll use this as my base coat and then I'll gradually build up the lighter green after that. Okay, I don't know why I'm putting this stage in really, because you can't see much of a difference I don't think on this video. But I've gone over and I've dry brushed a slightly light, I want to say lighter green, but I should probably say a green that's not quite as dark over the top. And in real life you can see it subtly, but you can't really see it on the video. But anyway, it just shows that you have to go through quite a few stages sometimes before you get to the stage where it's looking good. And it's worth putting the effort in, I think, to build it up gradually, even if it takes, you know, more than one pass to get there, rather than rush it. Right, this is with the next stage of green added, and if I zoom in you'll probably be able to see it now, just about. Can you see it? It is a really dark green, but I really like this. It's over the top, and it has got you know, you can tell the difference between where the brighter green is and where the really, really dark, almost black green is in all of the little gaps and deep places. This was the first stage on this build where I actually started getting excited about what it would end up looking like, because I knew like the next stage is to add all of the striping on it, and I knew it was the striping that was going to make it kind of instantly recognizable as a warrior bug. The shape's good and it sort of works, but I knew it would be those definite stripes that would make all the difference. And to do all those stripes, I didn't start with yellow, I started with yellow ochre. And that's really good because it means you can put the stripes on and basically just kind of block them in where you want them to be. And then I could add the yellow in the middle of these blotches, and it would help the yellow to kind of fade a little bit into the green. Hopefully you all agree that it is starting to look way, way more like a warrior bug now that it's got these stripes on. I was really quite happy at this point, and I knew it was only going to get a little bit better as well with the yellow added, because the yellow brightens it up a bit. Again, I'm not sure how well that will show up on this video, but yeah, I think the yellow will kind of make it pop a little bit in real life. It was as I was putting this colour on that I started thinking that the colour scheme is basically the same as a gremlin, you know, and I was doing, I've done a gremlin, a full-size gremlin. You'll have to check that out if you haven't seen that video already. But the colours were virtually the same, you know, really dark green and then the yellow ochre or sort of yellowy colours built up over the top. And I think there's a bit of red on the gremlin as well, maybe in the eyes and things. So this guy has a bit of red added to him later as well. All the various reference photos that I had of these warrior bugs from the movie and, you know, from other sources online as well, like toys that have been made of it and that kind of thing, they all had different numbers of stripes. So I wasn't too fussed about matching the stripes exactly. I just wanted to get the overall sort of look, and I think I've managed to do that. Some of the bands are quite kind of simple stripes, and some of them have got, you know, more kind of intricate edges, you know, things like little curves sticking out the side and that sort of thing. Okay, this is with the yellow and red bits added. So the yellow is just cadmium yellow. All of the paints I'm using, by the way, are System 3 acrylic paints. I use that for most of my model making. And the only thing with that is then you have to be careful with your model, because if you kind of scrape it against a corner or something, it can scrape the paint off. But you've got a couple of options. Either just be really careful with your models, you know, build them and put them in a display cabinet and call it a day, or you can go over the top of them with like a layer of super PVA glue or something like that, and that will protect them, you know, act like a lacquer, and that will be fine. You can get different glues, you know, some of them dry with a slightly matte finish and some of them dry with a really glossy finish. So if you had a creature where you wanted it to look really quite wet, you could find the right sort of glue to paint it with afterwards, and that would be one way of doing it. Unless I am making a creature that does really need a wet look to it, I will generally just choose the PVA glue that dries with a matte finish, because I think it looks more realistic. Right, you can see then where I've added the yellow. Like I said, it's cadmium yellow in the centres of the yellow ochre blotches, and I think that does make a big difference. But like I said, I don't know if it will show up very much on screen. And then I've just used cadmium red for the markings, which is basically just like a sort of a dot on the bump on his back, and then a sort of triangular section on his head, and a red patch underneath each eye. I was going to add some brighter bits on the base, like maybe just dry brush some light colour on just to kind of bring out some of the texture, you know, that I did for on the block, but I decided against it in the end because I thought I'll just keep it simple, and then the focal point is the creature. I've been trying to video this with a torch shining on it from a certain angle, and this is without the torch. I thought I'd try both, and you can decide which you prefer and which makes it show up the colours better. I also considered painting the piece of dowel, but then I thought if I paint it, you know, the dark green sort of colour, it'll just end up looking like another leg or something like that. So then I thought I could paint it perhaps red or something, and that might work. but we'll see. I think for now, just leave it as a piece of dowel, because again, it makes the warrior bug look like a separate thing. If any of you are fans of Starship Troopers, or if you would like me to make the brain bug, if you watch the movie and you like the brain bug, let me know in the comments, because like I say, it is on my to-do list, but it might be one that, you know, I make something else and then I come back to it in the future. I do like it in movies though, where there are two creatures that are quite distinctively different from each other, and I like to be able to make both of them so that they appear like a pair. If you're into movies with really weird creatures in them, check out my channel, because there's loads and loads of creatures that I've made now. I've made dozens and dozens from different movies, and what I try and choose are the weirder creatures. Basically, the weirder the better. So I've got quite a lot of creatures that I've made from movies that are really well known, and you'll recognise them all straight away. And then I've tried to combine that with a lot of movies that I quite like, that are a bit more unusual, kind of little cult movies, but with some really weird little creatures in them. Obviously things like gremlins, but also like critters and ghoulies and all the little, like I say, really weird creatures. Right, check out Milliput if you get a chance. Like I say, it's a 2-part putty. You mix the 2 parts together and it sets rock hard in about 4 hours. So it's really good modelling material. They sponsor this channel very kindly, so I'd like to thank them. But also hit subscribe if you want to see anything that I make in the future. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.